ओम समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्म विद्वरम्. So Hari Om and salutations to all. The acronym teamwork. T stands for, what does T stand for? Can't hear anybody.
Togetherness.
Good. T stands for togetherness. And the line which represents that in the pledge is,
We stand as one.
stand as one family. E stands for
Empathy.
empathy. The line which represents it is with love and respect.
Love and respect.
A stands for
Alertness.
alertness. Which line?
We serve as an army, courageous and disciplined.
We serve as an army, courageous and disciplined, ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values within and without us. That whole line. So, we saw about we serve as an army, courageous and disciplined. So, service must be with discipline, and also courage must be with discipline. It is not to bully people, to exploit people, but it is to overcome, to think big, to overcome our own inhibitions, to fight against our own low tendencies. All that requires courage. Service with discipline will bring credibility and goodwill, dependability. Now we continue this ahead in the next part of this line, which is ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values within and without us. So to be ever ready, to be ever alert, in Vivek Chudamani also and in the Upanishads also, it is said that inalertness is death. Pramado vai mrityuhu. When we have pramad, laziness, lethargy, carelessness, that is death. For a spiritual seeker, it is not a good quality to have. Because it is the pramad only which keeps us in bondage. Not only from spiritual standpoint, even in the world when we want to achieve great things, why is it that majority of the people aspire for success, but few people attain success? One of the reasons will be that those people who attain success, they do not have pramada in their life. They will ensure that they put the hard work, they will have innovation, they will have the qualities required to make that thing happen or to achieve that goal. So to be ever ready. Here what does it mean? First point Gurudev has mentioned here is ever ready to fight. He didn't stop there. Because many people say, Swamiji, I am living the pledge. I am ever ready to fight. And I continuously fight with people. He said, fight against whom? Not people. Low tendencies and false values within first. We are not out to change the world. We are out to change ourselves. In that process, we are sharing as our sadhana. And if somebody is benefited, that is up to them. So ever ready to be aware of what are the false values and low tendencies within us. See, low tendencies, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. 6 impurities of the mind. Selfishness, anger, greed, intoxication, pride, jealousy. And false values. So many false values one has. Vedanta hits at the most fundamental one. So if we think, so simple examples of false values are what? Greed is good, is a false value. If I become contented, I will be complacent. So it is better not to be content in life. It is better to be discontent and greedy in life. It's a false value. or to think that, to drink alcohol is cool and, I have arrived, false value. Or to think that any means is enough, any means is right for a goal that we want to achieve. And if the goal is noble goal, then the goal justifies the means. Gita doesn't say that at all. Upanishads don't say that at all. Satyena pantha vitato devayanaha. It is said through the path of truth only they will attain the higher state. And satyameva jayate is not a goal. On the path also it is satyam is important. So asatyam is a false value. Greed is a false value, which makes us behave in a different way, where we justify it though it is wrong. So that is a false value. At a certain deeper level of Vedanta, we also say that if we think happiness is in the world outside, that itself is a false value. Temporary pleasure can come from outside. Happiness cannot come from outside. So what are the false values in my mind? Like revenge is a false value. We have to forgive. But again, to continuously keep forgiving in a certain situation is not a right value. Then forgiveness becomes a false value. Like in Mahabharata war, if Arjun says, no, we forgive everybody, and he goes to one other extent to say that this better they kill me than I kill them, then it's a false value. Yesterday we observed the 125th birthday of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. We have been taught false value for such a long time that only with non-violence we got freedom. What about the tremendous sacrifices of the soldiers of INA, thousands of them? Unfortunately, they were even tried and trials were conducted against them in our own country. They were fighting for the freedom of our country and they have been tried in our own country, and many of them were not even given the status. The INA was not given a valid status by the government. So many of them, their whole life, they did not get pension, they did not get any of the benefits of freedom fighter, nothing. And upon that sedition charge, and they were being tried in their own country for fighting against their own, for fighting against the British. False value. Every time we don't have to go by only ahimsa, ahimsa paramo dharmaha. If we say ahimsa paramo dharmaha, it is no doubt the great virtue and value we have abided by and we live by ahimsa. But if there is himsa which is necessary, then it has to be done. A doctor has to amputate the leg. If the doctor says, no, I will not do any amputation, and doctor is a entertaining false value. The whole body will die. So what is a false value? One should be alert within and without. Why within? Because it is the internal value system which manifests in our action and that creates the society. Each one in their own mind. If everybody has justification for corruption in their mind, then corruption cannot go. Even today, are we not seeing that even today, even in our country, there are people who have the value for honesty, integrity, they will not become corrupt and they are able to achieve what they want to achieve. For some of them, there is a great struggle, but they are abiding by those values because they really are uncompromising in that. So if the totality has, each individual's mind has certain type of thought processes, that is what will manifest in the whole society. So Gurudev says within and without us. One simple method to know what is low is whatever drains us, distracts us from our goal is low. Especially which makes us feel lesser about ourselves, where I do certain things and my sense of self-worth goes down. I feel guilt, I feel regret, I feel I should not have done this. All those things are low. So what should we do in such situations? First of all, we should know that it is low or a false value. Just because peer pressure is there, we don't have to fall for that. There are many people who just fall for it. Like simple example, if I say, if one goes to a college and one studies regularly, systematically, attending classes, many times that person is called nerd, bookworm, because the false value is we have to go to college and the student is cool who bunks, who is in the canteen, who is with the friends, who goes away to the movies. Now, sometimes one does it, there is nothing wrong in it, but that is not the main purpose of going to the college. It's a false value. All the people are trying drugs in my college, so I will also try, because if I don't try, then I'm, you know, I don't feel the sense of belonging, and people make comments. So then peer pressure, one falls. So first of all, one should know what is wrong, what is low, what is false, is false. Not to justify the right as wrong and wrong as right. Second point. Third point is then to have the courage to stand up for one's own value system. And if I detect anything low in me, the formula Gurudev has given is introspect daily, detect diligently, negate ruthlessly, substitute wisely, grow happily. That is the formula he has given. Every day I should introspect what were my motives when I acted the whole day. Were they pure? If I had malicious motives, if I had low values, then I should learn to accept it. Yes, this is wrong. If I accept it without any justification, that is called negation. I have negated it. By detecting this is wrong and then I accept it, I have negated it. But that is only half the job. I must substitute it with the opposite. So if I have been angry, I should substitute with empathy. If I have been greedy, I should substitute with contentment. If I have been jealous, substitute with admiration. So this way it is the work we have to do on ourselves. Then the personality will become integrated and strong. If we have such a strong personality within, then we can take up certain causes outside and create a change or bring about a transformation even in the society. In management also, Stephen Covey also says that, private victories lead to public victories. What is the meaning of private victory there? If individually I do my homework, I correct myself, I make myself strong, then only public victories are possible. Otherwise, very soon one won't be able to sustain. It will be one sensational, some act or some achievement, and then everything fizzles out. So one must work on oneself. That's why Gurudev says low tendencies and false values within first. And then without us, meaning outside us. So a lot of people don't bother. They have such apathy towards the country, towards the culture. I say, how does it matter? It's all okay. If something is wrong, somebody else will correct it. My life is going well. I am bothered about my life, my money, my children. They should go abroad. They should build a house somewhere. They should have a married life. They should settle. Beyond that, nothing more. Forget it. If that apathy is there, eventually it will hit oneself only. Because there is no, we think of ourselves as separate from the society, but we are a part of the whole society. So what is happening in the society is going to affect us. I'm not saying for every cause we should start fighting and taking, actions or steps. We have to choose our battles wisely. There's no doubt. But the question is, if we know something is wrong and if we feel it is, in the purview of my duty towards my country, my culture, etc., then I must see how I can contribute to making the country and the culture, etc., a better place, a better way to live. And if my culture is getting completely, sidelined and there are attempts to destroy this culture, I have to stand up for it. Unfortunately, in the name of pseudo-secularism, we have allowed our culture to be degraded and destroyed by many others for no reason. Because we have been brainwashed with secularism, which is not true secularism. So it is a false thing that is happening outside, and one has to stand up for it, stand up for the culture. How easily people can degrade our culture, create so many web series, create movies, do anything to put down Hindu culture, and we Hindus don't even stand up for it. And sometimes if somebody stands up for it, then what happens? Those people who have degraded us, they will just offer an unconditional apology and get away with it. There are no legal consequences of it. So, and if somebody is trying to bring those consequences and even, teach a lesson to those other people, we Hindus will sit and judge them and call them names. So many such things happen where we not only don't stand up sometimes for what we should stand up for, but we even condemn those who are standing up to protect. So the reasons for apathy are many, because the identification is not there. That's the main reason. The rest of it is all expression of that. One doesn't feel I am a proud Hindu or I am a proud Indian. Look at our country today. What all people said about our country. And today we have exported our vaccines to Brazil, to Nepal, to Bangladesh, to Bhutan, to Maldives, to so many places. How many lives are being saved? When we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, this is actually Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in action. It's a glory of our country. How many countries are able to do that? But still many of our young people and others, they will still think India mein kya hai, kuch nahi hai. Because the brainwashing through so many other ways is so strong that one just doesn't have the right vision about the country. And whatever challenges are there in the country, one has to fight it out. It is my country. Who will clean the system? I have to clean the system, and to clean the system, I have to get into the system also. I can't just run away everywhere. So when he says here that fight against all low tendencies and false values within and without us, did Gurudev not stand for this? When Ram Janmabhoomi, that Babri Masjid was destroyed, Gurudev stood by this culture and he said very clearly that Ram temple has to be built there. And the solution that he gave that time is a solution finally they arrived at. That let that whole place be given to the Hindus and we will build a mosque nearby. So the point is, he could have taken that stand saying, no, I don't want to speak about this at all. A very controversial topic. He could have been diplomatic on that. There were threats of attack on our ashram. Police refused to give permission. But Gurudev made the bold statement that the temple will be built there. You see the interview of Puja Gurudev in the organizer when it came. Ram Madhavji had taken that interview that time. And Gurudev was very bold and very clear. So when certain things happen for our culture, for our country, and he has always voiced out what is wrong and what is right. So there are certain issues which happen, whether in a country, in the culture, one has to stand up for them. And if we don't, we compromise, then that life of compromise is terrible. I will share on that group, the Sevaks group, a letter of Subhash Chandra Bose. What he wrote about freedom and what he wrote about living in compromise is very inspiring. One should read that. So this is what Gurudev stood for. All low tendencies and false values within and without us. So many low tendencies and false values of our culture did Gurudev not destroy? Knowledge was being given only to select class of people. Gurudev opened it up to everybody, irrespective of caste, community, creed, gender, nationality. He opened it up to everyone. When he started Sandipani Sadhanalaya and the Vedant course there, He was the first Swami to give sannyas to women. In those times, it was not so easy. People were not giving. People were not even allowing women to study the Veda. Even today, so many people ask that question, can women chant Gayatri Mantra? He broke all these wrong notions with the right attitude. So that is the vision, ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values. So when it is outside, we have to voice out. Don't say it is not my responsibility, I can't do anything about it, because that is how we have been for some time, and people have invaded us and destroyed our culture, and we have lost a lot of our legacy. So one has to voice it out. There will be sacrifices required, which are of personal comfort, but nothing is achieved without sacrifice. And in fact, you will read the letter that Subhash Chandra Bose ji has written is so stunning about sacrifice, etc. What he has written is very inspiring. That generation, that type of a generation is what we need to create, who have nation above self, who are able to put the country above themselves, culture above themselves, environment above themselves, and work, not always thinking of only how much money I have, how much bank balance I created, how much house I have, how many cars I have. That is one part of evolution. Not that that is not important, but that alone cannot be life. So a seeker here stands up for low tendencies and false values within and without us. Like Jatayu, why did he have to fight Ravan? He is no match to Ravan. He could have said, no, what can I do? Nothing. I will not do anything. I will just be there and I will tell Bhagwan Ram that Ravan took away Sita ji. That is called a diplomatic seva. But he fought. And he risked his life, and he not just fought, he fought valiantly. Ravan, his crown was gone. His, on his hand, on his head, and many other places. He was injured badly by Jatayu. So he became ready and he did his duty. Nishad Raj, he was ready to fight Bharat and die. Today in the Ramayana class in the morning, I was just covering that. He tells his people that it is better to die protecting the Lord and fighting for the cause of the Lord, and on the banks of Gangaji here. What more can be a greater source of punya? They know that they are no match to the army of Ayodhya. But in his mind, he thought that these people are coming to kill Bhagwan Ram, so he stood up. So that is the point. What is a low tendency and false value that I am fighting inside? And what is a cause that I am working outside for? A Chinmay Mission member must be ready for both. It cannot be, I will only do my inside fighting, outside let it go to dogs, I don't care. Then the vision is not complete. So for fighting outside, one will have to approach in an organized manner, gather more people if required, build a team. That we saw the first line itself said that. And what should we fight? Fight the cause or fight the effects? Like see, suppose we say corruption. Now corruption, the effect is corruption. The cause is greed. I can fight both. Bring certain rules, bring certain transparency, make it online. So many methods are there to reduce corruption at the effect level. But I also should work at the cause level. Produce people who are able to keep nation above self, who don't fall for these false values. Teach them the lives of great people of our country, how they have sacrificed, what are things they have achieved, how they have brought up the country to such great heights. That type of a generation we create, then we are working at the cause level. So we have to identify. One is to help somebody who is taking drugs to help them to rehabilitate. Other is to create awareness about drugs that people don't get into the drugs. So that is the work of Chinmay Mission. that we are trying to work at both levels, the effect level also, cause level also. So there is rural work which is happening. There are hospitals, orphanages, many things are there. But there are schools. They have the Chinmay Vision program. There is a Chinmay Vishwa Vidyapeeth. There are our Bal Vihar classes, Yuva Kendra classes. So many avenues are there by which the basic thought pattern of the individual we attempt to change and produce such heroes who will serve the country in a dedicated way. That is working at the cause. So that is what Gurudev wanted, ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values within and without us. Even in the organization, if there are certain false values, we should openly discuss about it and improve as an organization. One does not have to fall for authority or some type of control nature and just be submissive. We can express, we can say that this is an area where we can improve, or this is where we went wrong and this is how we should correct ourselves. That is how healthy growth will happen. It cannot be only everybody keeps praising everything, oh, good, all went well, superb, badhiya ho gaya. Badhiya bhi ho gaya, no doubt. Badhiya hi ho gaya, no. It's not only good has happened. There will be areas of improvement, 100%. What are those areas of improvement? Along with the good things and celebrating success, we need to identify that also. Otherwise, the team will not grow and very soon ego clashes will happen and whole team will disintegrate because one did not focus on the areas of improvement. So this is the second line. We serve as an army, courageous and disciplined, ever ready to fight against all low tendencies and false values within and without us. Now, M for motivation. What is the motivation? We live honestly the noble life of sacrifice and service. That is the motivation. So it is said it is easy to die for one's ideals. It is difficult to live up to them. This is not to undermine death, but the point to say here is that to live every moment the life of sacrifice on service, which is in pursuit of an honest life, that is not easy. That requires tremendous commitment and clarity and sacrifice. So that's why if you don't stand for something, you will fall for everything. We have to take a stand. These are certain values, I will not compromise. That Gurudev used to call it as intellectual honesty, satyam. Not to compromise against one's convictions is satyam. So what are my convictions? What is the cause I am standing up for? And in that pursuit of that cause, I will not compromise. I will be honest. This honesty is a very important quality in a spiritual seeker. If there is no honesty, spiritual growth is not possible. Many times what happens to us is we land up in a situation where we are just diplomatic. We won't take a stand at all. And if the leader is like that, terrible it is. I'm not saying diplomacy is never required, but diplomacy cannot be chosen over honesty. If the diplomacy is against honesty, it is not beneficial at all. If one wants to only please everybody and be goody-goody and not take any stand, that is the worst situation, because in that situation one will hurt many people. So for the sake of popularity, for the sake of getting acceptance of people, if one doesn't take a stand where one knows that something is wrong and one has to take a stand, that type of a leader will disintegrate the whole team. That is a sign of weakness. So honesty is a very important aspect. Arjun became, the meaning of the word Arjun is who is straightforward, who is honest. He did not bring ego into play. Why? By saying that, how can I surrender to Sri Krishna? Who is Krishna? He is just a friend who has grown with me. He didn't say that. He didn't say that, how can I break down in front of two armies? Look how many people are watching me. I can't break down here. He did not hesitate to tell Bhagwan that this is what I am feeling. He did not hide back. He did not say that, okay, let me just tell some part of it, rest of it I will hide. He was straightforward. To what extent? Ashru Purna Kulekshanam. He had tears in his eyes. Imagine the greatest warrior of that times, who has single-handedly defeated the Kauravas in the Virat war. He is in the middle of the battlefield, has fallen down. He is at the feet of Sri Krishna, threw away his bow and arrows, and he is there with tears in his eyes. Compare it or contrast it with Duryodhan. He was feeling stress, worry, tension inside because he is adharmic. But he doesn't, he goes to the teacher Dronacharya, he doesn't open up, he doesn't surrender, he doesn't express his problem. On the contrary, he taunts his teacher and comes back. Now you see the difference. Who found a solution? Arjun found a solution. Arjun was able to overcome his anxiety and his emotional overwhelming, his emotions that were overwhelming him. And he finally did his duty, won the war. Duryodhan did not. He didn't find the solution because straightforwardness was not there. So honesty is very, very important. In fact, if you see a great master called Nisargadatta Maharaj, you know, he is from Mumbai only. So when they asked him that what is required to know the supreme truth, he said, if you are utterly honest, you will realize the truth. He just said that one quality is enough. Honesty is enough. It will lead you to the truth, because honesty is expression of truth also. So what is honesty? At a simple level, to understand the integrity of thought, word and deed in alignment with universal values is honesty. See, just thought, word and deed, if they are same, doesn't mean there is honesty, because even for a wrong motive, one can have integrity of thought, word and deed. A terrorist wants to blow up people and kill them and kill himself. He has conviction, he has feeling, and his actions will reveal that. So gone. He has achieved his job. But that is not honesty, that is not integrity. Because the purpose for which it was being done is a wrong purpose. So honesty comes in thought, word and deed. When it is aligned for a noble purpose with the universal values, then that approach is called honesty. And one of the simplest ways to be honest is put yourself in the shoes of the others and think, how am I treating people? Is that the way I want to be treated? If I look at my personality from a third person standpoint, then I will know whether I'm getting biased or I'm not getting biased. I'm being honest or I'm being dishonest. From ego standpoint, many times ego justifies dishonesty. That's why I'm saying we have to learn to rise above our ego and see objectively that in this situation, what would a wise person do, or what would Gurudev have done? From that standpoint, when we start thinking, then we will understand, okay, this is right, this is not right. Like Arjun's standpoint, he gave justification full first chapter. And anybody would have read the first chapter would have finally said, Arjun is right. No need of war. Why should we fight war? How much destruction is bringing? Just imagine if Gita was not there, if second chapter onwards there is nothing. What would be our conclusion? Arjun was right. So ego will always try to justify. If I want to know what is honesty, what is truth, what is the right thing to do in any situation, I have to pull myself out of that ego and then see. So we live honestly. And a person who is honest can be loving also. That is what our culture says. Satyam vada, priyam vada, hitam vada. You don't have to be bitter. A lot of people say, Swamiji, I just call a spade a spade. Truth is very bitter. And if that person feels bad, it is their problem. Arey, truth is not bitter. We have attachment, so we feel truth is bitter, number one. Number two, it is our responsibility to tell the truth in a polite way. Not, we don't have to say it bluntly. If somebody is blind, we don't say andhe. You are telling the truth, but it is a blunt truth which is hurting. Then what to tell? We have to tell Prajna Chakshu. You are expressing the same truth, but in a polite way, positive way. So the point to understand here is this: honesty is a very, very, very important quality in every aspect of life. In spiritual life, the most important. In relationships, if honesty is not there, are we not seeing trust issues happening today? One of the biggest problems in life today, whether it's in personal life, whether in professional life, in national life, anywhere, the biggest deficit today is trust deficit. People don't trust each other. If trust deficit is there, how can teams work? Each one not only is having trust deficit, each one is thinking how the other person may be instigating against me, may be playing some dirty politics against me, and each one is trying to play mind games to score some brownie points. Arey, that mind can't achieve anything great. Credibility can't be built, goodwill can't be built, trust is not there. How can great things be achieved? So honesty is a very, very important aspect. It will bring goodness, it will bring credibility, it will bond the teams well, it will create a great sense of strength. So Gurudev said, we live honestly. The motivation should be that I live honestly. The noble life. The noble life is the motivation. Now, if somebody says everybody is dishonest, why should I not be dishonest? From spiritual standpoint, we say that there is a split in the personality. The doer and the knower split. I know what is right, but I do something wrong. Then there is a split. In Gita, Arjuna asked that question. That anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. What is it that makes a person commit sin? Even though one knows it is wrong, but there is some force within as though which is helplessly making that person act like that. So Bhagavan said, yes, that force is desire and anger born out of Rajoguna. Is our own attachment to some enjoyment, some pleasure, some power, some position, some name, fame, which makes us compromise. So the moment I know something is right, I don't do it, or I know something is wrong and I do it, there is a split. Like Duryodhan says, Janami dharmam nachame pravritti. I know what is dharma, but I can't live in dharmic way. And I know what is adharma, but I can't stop living adharmic way. How deep is that tendency that has gone inside him? So doer knower split happens. The moment that split happens, there will be agitation, tension, fear of discovery. One will not be at peace. And one tells more and more lies, which will also make that person weak in confidence. Internally, externally, that person may make a big show. Like Duryodhan makes a big show, but internally he is a weakling. Because honesty is not there, dharma is not there. That dharma brings a lot of strength that we generally undermine. We think dharmic people are weak, dumb, they can be taken for granted. A really dharmic person is very strong, will never be taken for granted. So when we become dishonest, then we have to tell more and more lies. And it is said humorously sometimes that a person who tells the truth is very free, but a person who tells lies has to remember a lot. So great memory power is required. What have I told whom, when, how much I have to go on remembering? And by mistake I tell something to somebody, which is truth, then my entire pack of cards will just fall. So continuously I have to be under that stress. Willpower becomes weak. A person can't achieve any great thing because the mind will insult the person, saying ki what you will do this. One does not trust other people, because if one is acting in a dishonest way, one will always suspect, is this fellow doing this, is that fellow doing that. One will always go on doubting other people, and eventually people also will not trust that person. So how lonely, how insecure that person will become. Think. This I covered, more memory and more strain. So all these reasons are there why one should not have this dishonesty in one's life. And it's up to each individual how much one is able to live. We live honestly the noble life of sacrifice and service. So this truth will require some sacrifice. Giving up the lower for the higher is called sacrifice. Giving up the higher for the lower is called compromise. And nothing great is achieved without sacrifice. If I really love a cause, I will sacrifice my comforts, my attachments for the cause. And that sacrifice brings joy. A mother sacrifices so much for bringing up the child. Especially when the child is small, so cranky, the child keeps crying the whole night so many times, the mother can't sleep well. What all the mother sacrifices? Because there is love. There is no pain. One doesn't say, "Arey, pata nahi kyun ye paida ho gaya." One is not, bitter about that. So many great freedom fighters, they went to the gallows smiling because they believed in that cause. It was dear to them. So here it is. That sacrifice is a very, very important quality. A person who is honest sacrifices pettiness, attachments, some extra benefits that come by becoming dishonest. Those things are very dear to this person. Those things are not more dear to this person than being honest. So one lets go. And also we may have to sacrifice our time, our efforts, our resources. Many times, people think that, youngsters today are so much pressurized. They have work to do. They have college, they have school, they have exams, they have co-curricular activities, so many things. In that pressure, Swamiji, they don't come into chick. Is understandable. But that's only justification. Because in chick, there are so many other youngsters who are taking time away. I know so many of them for whom Sundays means chick, means Chinmay Mission, means coming to do seva. That is one day for them to relax. 6 days of the week, there is hard work to be done. One day to relax, but in that one day, they will come. For hours, we discuss certain things, then we execute some projects and all those things. Many of you are aware of that. You also must be doing that. Because there is cause which is dearer, that we must reach this knowledge to the youth, or we must help in cultural revival, or we must do nation building. That cause is important. Then we sacrifice time, effort, resources, whatever is required. And there is joy in that. There is not some pain. So we live honestly the noble life of sacrifice. And in this sacrifice, there is no force. It is voluntarily done because of the conviction. That is a higher life. That is the motivation. One may be denying and depriving oneself, but there is a great motivation that I am living a deeper purpose, a higher way of life. That is a motivation. Sacrifice and service. What is service? Not just doing some social service or working on a project or being in the office for a long time. Service is the attitude of dedication. What is my devotion, dedication to the cause, to the work that I'm doing? Where that cause is more important to me than I. then that is true seva. That type of a seva is what transforms. So for today, we will stop here. We live honestly the noble life of sacrifice and service. Rest we will take up in the last class, which is next week. Any questions for today?
Swamiji, thanks for your talk and making it very deep and also relevant in today's terms. I just want to request those who want to have questions, you can unmute and please ask the question. Or if you are not able, you're not a host or a co-host, you can raise your hand. We will try to unmute you.
Swamiji.
Haji.
Yes, Hari Om. The thing is, there's so much of difference in the parenting techniques that have happened over the ages. Like maybe our parents were brought up in a very strict family where they had to do things. Whereas we were brought up a little bit more freedom and we gave our children still more freedom. So is this one of the reasons why we find that the younger generation now, most of them, are not into spirituality because they consider, I mean, the world, the vision also is wider. They are into the net, they are into, knowing about so many different countries, so many different cultures. So when we talk to them about our culture, then they don't seem to be very inspired. So is it the parenting technique? Is it that we need to force our children when they are small that they should do certain things, or we should give them the freedom? Because we have tried explaining to them what is good, what is bad, and then given them the freedom because that was what we were taught. So this was a question, because fighting within us is comparatively easy because at least hopefully we are master of ourselves. But fighting with around us is definitely difficult.
It is difficult, there is no doubt. See, parenting does have a very great impact on the minds. There is no question about it. And as you said, at a certain age, we have to make it compulsory. But after a certain age, we can't make it compulsory. And so it is necessary for them. So it is necessary for the teenagers and the youngsters to be able to see the scientific reasoning behind our cultural practices. One part, because that is what they are inspired by today. They are not inspired by the authority or by a certain religious instruction or by just because parents did it. They will not be inspired by that. They have to know scientific reason. One. Two, they have to see the benefit of it in their life. Three, it has to be unfortunately made cool today. Because if they are doing something which is not cool, and especially if it is something in public, then they have a lot of peer pressure, because today social media and many other things have made their life very accessible to all. So they are very self-conscious of how they are being seen. And in that game, we have been lacking. As Hindus, we have been lacking in that game. In what context? That we, as I said earlier, we have allowed people to trample upon us and put down our culture like anything. So today it has become cool to scoff at Hindu religion. Today it has become cool to say that I am not a Hindu, I am spiritual, I am not religious. Those kind of dialogues the youngsters will parrot. Because the left ecosystem, the leftists, the liberals, the other religions, many of them have come together to portray Hindu culture in a very negative way. So continuously we have to understand that there is a bombarding that is happening in the minds of on the minds of the youngsters through education, through media, through the things that they are seeing in their peer, in the friend circle. And many of them, their entire thought process has become very self-centered thought process, because the direction in which they are looking is somewhere else. one is not looking at the larger picture of the country, culture, etc., because one is now thinking only about I, me, and mine. The individualistic nature which the West has propagated, the success of the West has been that they have sold that individualistic lifestyle to us. That is their success. It is not about their products. They have sold individualistic lifestyle and mindset. So people don't want to marry early. Today people are marrying at what age? 32, 33. Some don't want to marry at all. They say, why should I even marry? All this has come from where? This is coming from the attitude that I am more important. There's nothing more important than I. Now these pressures which are there, we have to know how to tackle these pressures. And I put it in a way in which it appeals to them. So what appeals to them? Science appeals to them. Environment appeals to them. Greater, making the world a better place appeals to them. Them being a contributor to certain things appeals to them. Where they have created a difference, they feel good about it. Now, many of these we have to bring together and make them understand and see the glory of the culture. Then hopefully certain things will change. They may not change in the time span that we expect it to change, but at least the seeds have gone inside and the change will happen. Like I'll conclude with this example that Ekadashi fasting, our culture, it is very embedded into our culture. 2018 Nobel Peace Prize, the scientist who he got the Nobel Peace Prize in science for doing the research on fasting and to say that how fasting helps to build more T cells in the body, which will help to fight cancer. For that he got Nobel Peace Prize. They still have not established the connection of the tithi, that why on Ekadashi you do fasting. You can do fasting throughout the day, throughout the month, anytime. So he said one day in a month, if you fast, your body will regenerate the T cells, etc. One big research he did. But if you do on Ekadashi day, I am 100% sure along with T cells, there will be many more benefits, which some scientists after some 10-20 years of research will find out. And then we'll bring in front of the people, and then we will sit here and say, see, this is the glory of our culture. So we need to present this and we need to find our people to do research. Why should we wait for the West to authenticate? But we are doing that, we are waiting. So a lot of deconditioning has to happen. So parenting style is only one small part of it. So we should ensure that we don't feel guilty or bad for it. Some mistake we have made. We are doing our best, that intention matters, and then we can keep improving our method. And I'm telling you, it is always a question of time. The moment they have their children, they will first ask which Balvihar class, where should I put them? Because this fellow is becoming very unruly now. How to discipline this fellow? It will all come back.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you for the questions and excellent answers.
Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.